So hello, everybody. Welcome to this webinar. Today, we've got an incredibly important topic to cover with all of you. What's next for your business? It's something that a lot of you might have on your mind currently, or you might be stressing out because you're not sure where to even start. You know, you need to be cognizant of where you're taking your business or where it's headed. And that's partly why you're here. So in today's webinar, we're going to show you what paths are available and how you can set yourself up to take advantage of those opportunities should they arise. So before we get into it, I'd like to take a moment to cover some of the ground rules for today's webinar, introduce our speakers, and tell you a little bit about the Institute and what we do. So we have a lot to cover, so let's get right into it. Our speakers will be giving their presentations one after the other. During their presentations, should you have any questions, make sure to throw those in the chat section. There's a little bubble on the right there. You can click that and open it up. I don't think it opens automatically, so make sure you check it a couple times. Type hello there so we know that you're there. After each of the presentations, I'll grab a few questions from you guys so that we can get them answered. And then after that, we'll move on to the next presentation. At the end of this webinar, we'll open up a Zoom meeting, in the one that we're actually beaming in from, to invite all of you in here for further discussion at the end of this, to talk about the themes, ideas, and strategies that we covered today, should you be interested in hanging around that long. So just a quick recap. Number one, have the presentations with the Q&As after each one of them. Number two, if you have any questions, please send them in the chat section of the Vimeo window on the right. Hey, Tommy, I see you guys there. Awesome. And number three, we'll share a link to join a Zoom meeting after for further discussion at the end of the webinar. With that covered, I'd like to introduce our speakers. Now, it's been my great pleasure to serve the auto industry for the past decade, and I've been blessed to be a part of improving businesses, creating real livelihoods, and changing lives. And I hope we can achieve some of that today. The Institute is constantly seeking to improve our industry through our comprehensive peer group programs, our coaching, experiential workshops, all of which supported by our Gear Success platform. And much like today, by sharing the experience and knowledge of passionate people that I have the great fortune of working with. So today we have Tony Zanders from the Institute. He's one of our facilitators, coaches, and trainers. He just recently sold shop after 22 years of ownership and 38 years in the industry and has unofficially retired. He's setting his sights to help shops do what he was able to do for himself. His philosophy is one of mission and purpose, understanding where you are and where you're headed, and is eager to share his format for starting with a strong foundation. And next, we've got Michael Smith from Herzberg Smith Co. They serve their companies by providing invitation-only master peer groups, owner coaching, strategic mentoring relationships, multi-day learning intensives, and business advisory services when it's appropriate. Michael Smith has 42 years of experience in general management, breakthrough strategy, organization and leadership development, revenue acceleration, private equity and venturing, and business advisory services. He designs and builds high-performance, value-creating growth companies. It's quite a lot. And some of his professional backgrounds even include product development at Merrill Lynch. And we're incredibly excited to have these two incredible, amazing gentlemen to share their knowledge with you today. I want to thank you both for being here. Very excited. And I know those attending will get huge value from what you have in store. With that said, let's get into it. And Tony, you have the floor.
Perfect. Thank you very much. I'm going to go ahead and put a little presentation up on the screen and talk with you guys a little bit about where I'm coming from. Now, first, I want to, I'm excited to have Michael here. As long as I've been in the industry as a business owner, I've always thought we need to make sure we're looking outside of ourselves. And I really appreciate Michael and his outside perspective and the value that creates for each one of us. And so the principles that I want to talk about tonight are rudimentary. They're simple. And it still surprises me how often people overlook the simplicity of these things. And as I talk about the simple objects of mission and purpose, and of knowing the current condition of your business and what that looks like as far as planning for the next step, I'm gonna share some ideas with you that are actually exactly the same whether you're planning on continuing to build your business, whether you're planning on trying to sell your business or hand it off to the next generation, or if you want to grow your business exponentially and engage with somebody like Michael that wants to find thriving businesses and move them farther into the market. So the simplicity of, and I love this quote by Pope John Paul that I put up here: the future starts today, not tomorrow. And I just want to give you a little piece of history. When I started my business 22 years ago, my wife and I, we began the business with an idea of what we wanted out of it at the end. And that wasn't just figuratively. We actually wrote down exactly what we were hoping to accomplish. And in the first month, I had a 1-year plan, a 5-year plan, a 10-year plan, and we started into it. And the reason that that's so important is that we were able to find the value. If I can get my handy little computer to work, there we go. Find the value of mission and purpose. And the thing that I wanted to emphasize, mission and purpose are closely tied. They're often used interchangeably, but there is a difference. And I should have put purpose first in this conversation. The idea of purpose is there's something that's set up as an object or an end to be attained. It's to propose as an aim to oneself. The idea is that you're actually shooting for something far beyond your daily operation, far beyond the time that you're going to spend in your business. There's a purpose in your life, and I think that that's essential when you're operating a business. The reason that's so essential is if you get to that point of you're looking at what do I do when I sell my business, if you have no purpose in your life, then the only thing you have is your business. You sell that, you sell yourself, and it really doesn't make sense. And then closely related, but somewhat different, mission, a specific task with which a person or group is charged, a pre-established, often self-imposed objective or purpose. And again, the two are used interchangeably often, but mission would be the tactical how or what you're going to do. I would encourage everyone to really sit down and think about what does it look like in the future? What am I really trying to accomplish? So many times we in business are, my mission or my purpose is to get through this stinking day, just trying to, I just want to close the doors and go home again. And boy, I have been in that spot. I've been through those seasons, and that's tough. Other times, you've got a high performing business, things are in great shape, and you really don't know what to do with it. That's when it's really important to understand the purpose beyond where you're at. And so the mission is what how or what you're going to do to get to your purpose. And the purpose, anybody that's focused on just a number or a dollar sign or a level of sales or a number of shops to own, I think those are all important as part of your mission, as part of your strategy. But I think having a purpose beyond that, ask yourself, of course, what do you love? What do you love to do with your life? And do you love what you're currently doing? Do you love the people that you're working with? And if not, you probably need to go deep inside and start analyzing that. The thing that we're going to talk about today, the next steps, this idea of being at a spot in your business where you're trying to decide, do I expand? Do I sell? Do I transition? Future generations. I know so many shops that are multi-generational shops. How do I know when it's the right time? I've seen owners, the founder of the shop, hang on just bitterly to the end because they don't know what else to do. I think if you don't have a good understanding of where you're at, where you're going, it's really hard to make decisions on what to do with your business. So I want to encourage everyone to just think about the mission and purpose, what you're doing, why you're doing it, and what is your dream in life? What is on beyond what you're doing? And in this next idea, this is the nuts and bolts of it, really. If you've got a good, clear idea, clear mission and purpose of what you're doing, now you actually have to make this business obey. You have to make this business perform and go where you intend it to go. And and some of the nuts and bolts are your basic key performance indicators, KPIs we call them. The KPIs that are essential to your business, gross sales, car count, average repair order, hours per repair order, gross profit margins, and parts, labor, and general, key performance indicators. And when one of those things is off, you know what it is, you know how to fix it, you're paying attention to that. And then when you've got those key performance indicators, boy, if any of you out there are kind of lackluster in solving some of the problems that you currently see, think about, if it came time to sell, would you want to change those things then? And if you want to change them then, for goodness sakes, change them right now. Don't wait until it's time. In just a little bit of history, when we got to the point where we were going to sell our business, we had been performing at the level that we wanted to perform for years, for many years. And when it came time to actually sell the business, we didn't have to change anything. We just started to do the paperwork, do the go through the process, and the bankers, the finance company, everybody was impressed at how clean the business was. And so I encourage everybody, not only your KPIs, but your SOPs, your operating practices. Do you really have a good handle on your business? And I'm excited to hear Michael talk a little bit about multi-shop ownership. The SOPs, the idea of SOPs, if you've got good structure, you can expand to multiple locations. You've got it all dialed in. If the business is relying entirely on you and on your involvement in the business, you have less value to a potential buyer. You have less value to your sons or daughters if you want to hand it off, because you haven't made the business behave like it's supposed to. And so, it's important that you have well-defined paths and SOPs. The first slide was, do today. I forget the quote from our hero, the Pope, but the idea is you're setting yourself up today for what you want in the future. And so well-defined SOPs, target objectives, you need to have budgets in place, marketing plans, growth strategies, a regular SWOT analysis, everything that's going to make your business head in the direction you want it to go. And then it still surprises me how many times we say, this is what I want to accomplish. And if you ask the question, when, you kind of get dead airspace. And the difference between a dream and a goal is a date. I love that quote. It's a simple idea, but if you've got a dream of, I want this business to be, look like this or that, I want to have, 3 or 5 stores, I want to do this, I want to do that, but you're really not sure when you're going to get to the level that you've got established SOPs. You don't have a date on any of your strategies. It really doesn't work out. So I want you to consider, have a timeline on all these objectives, and don't wait for tomorrow. Don't put off till tomorrow what you can do today. So that's kind of the, being aware of the current conditions and really applying yourself to getting those current conditions in the right space. Make sure that you're actually making this business behave the way it should be. And then the next steps, you've got an idea where you're going, you've got a purpose, you understand what's beyond the business, you understand the mission of what you're trying to accomplish and the steps you're going to take. How much longer do you actually want to own the business? Or do you want to keep growing and turn your business over to another shop? Do you want to continue to expand the business and acquire other locations and continue to dominate a market or a region? Knowing that is and how that integrates into your own purpose and values, that's going to be a critical factor. So how do you know when you're ready to sell or to transition? And we did a lot of research prior to making the decision to sell our business. And a couple of things that we came up with is your business growing and profitable? If your business is on a steep decline, you can bail out, but it's bailing out of a plane that's headed down. You hope your parachute works, or you can be, this is what my business to be, and then you apply yourself and you cause that business to grow, and you put the people in place that are going to make it grow, and you're going to make sure that it's profitable. And then if it's in that growth curve, that's a great time to sell it. Don't wait till it starts to decline. If you've got a good, healthy, growing business, think about the options. Another thing that's true in potentially selling businesses, are there significant market conditions that are changing? Is your business about to have a disruption? And in the automotive industry is going to be strong for decades to come. I don't think we're really up against any significant changes. There are threats to the emerging electric vehicle market. There are threats to our market in the emerging electric vehicle market. However, the electric vehicles are not going to overtake the entire country. There's always going to be a need for our services. And so, but be aware of market conditions. Is there going to be a significant growth and you want to take advantage of that, or you want to get out because you don't want to ride that horse that hard? Be aware of those things. Do you know what you want out of your sale or succession? That's something to really be aware of. Somebody asks, hey, what's your business worth? You probably should have thought about it enough to know what it's going to be worth. And then that's when you engage. If you get to that point of evaluating, do I really want to sell it now? Get involved with a broker or an advisor, someone that can actually help you develop a value, and then make sure you talk to your CPA or financial planner. If that number is meets your expectations, is that going to be enough for your personal goals? Can that put you into retirement or set you up for the next stage of your life? All of those things matter. And then, do you have a plan for what you're planning or hope to do after you sell or transition out? And these are ideas that are really targeted towards someone who's in that spot. I built this business. I want to retire. I want to move on to the next step. And the thing that I think was probably the most helpful to us before we made this decision is the idea that you don't retire from something. If you want to be happy, you're actually retiring to something. You're going from your existing format, your existing lifestyle, your existing business interaction, and you're going into something else, something that you love. And the recommendations are to have hobbies, have activity, and have involvement, engagement, meaningful activity, whether it's volunteering for the Humane Society or whatever organization that you're passionate about. But make sure that you actually have thought about where you're going to. And it's especially after the last couple of years, we've all encountered the pain and struggle of the COVID. If you've been in business long enough, you've gone through the recession of '08. We started right in year 2000, so we just barely got started in the Y2K fiasco. But we've been through some ups and downs, and it was right for us. It was time for us to make that change. And then the change wasn't, I just want to get away from it. We've been in that spot. We've been burned out and worn out and tired and beat up, but it really wasn't about getting away from it. My wife and I actually had desires and ambitions and plans. We found the idea of continuing the business preventing us from continuing on with the dreams and visions we had. And so for us, it was time to retire. So in summary, the simple thing is make a plan, figure out what you're doing, review it, make sure it's solid, get coaching, get all the input that you need, and execute it. Don't wait until you want to sell to execute the plan. Execute it today and build that business. And that is what's going to set you up for the most successful transition, or being, acquiring another business because you've got a thriving business, or get the attention investor that the wants your business, whatever the case is. Make a plan, review it, and execute. So, Kent, back to you, sir.
Most owners from identifying the future that they want, right? I mean, that's a big question. What do you want after?
Sure. Well, and I think, Kent, I came to a personal crisis in the 08, 07, 08, 09 recession, and that was a hard time on me. And I actually engaged with a personal coach, a counselor almost, that challenged me. Tony, what are your dreams? And I, started talking about the business. He says, no, Tony, what are your dreams? And he reawoke in me that I actually want more in life than just going to work every day and just getting the business to operate. And so I think the biggest challenge many of us have on knowing where we're going is we've forgotten to dream. We've forgotten the value of dreaming, the value of knowing that there is something exciting. And I love a quote my wife says often: if money were no object and you knew you couldn't fail, what would you attempt to do? And that's the foundation of a dream. What is it that's out there? And so many of us, I think, we fail to look at what the future is because we've forgotten how to dream.
Yeah, I love that. Think about your dreams, people. Write them out. What areas do you think are left to the last second, right? The things that are preventing shops from making that transition to their next step.
Oh, cleaning up their financial statement. It's good enough. It's good enough. It's good enough. The bank says, "Hey, I want to see your financial statement." Now you get what's all that, and it's really easy to have a sloppy financial statement. I think crisp, clean, precise accounting throughout the entirety of your business is an essential that gets overlooked. Paperwork when it comes to selling a business is so deep paperwork that having clean, precise, accurate books is an essential thing. Next thing would be SOPs. Oh yeah, this is the way we do things. Oh, somebody wants to buy okay, I better write it down.
Yeah.
Well, no, you should have had that written down 6 years ago. And I think that's another thing that people overlook.
And the last question I have for you is what is a good timeline for shops to follow if they're getting prepared to sell, expand, or transition to an MSO or multi-shop operator?
Sure. So I'll give you a timeline that we heard in a conference a number of years ago about business succession, and it's 5 to 7 years. Oh my gosh, 5 to 7. What do you mean? If you start right now and put everything in place, over the course of 5 to as many as 7 years, your business is actually ready to sell. But if you're starting from ground zero today and trying to sell it, it might take several years before you've actually done the due diligence and to put the things in place. So, I said before, start now, right? Start now with getting everything in place and have that business ready. And, I think businesses sell in 6 months. In fact, just to be, honest, our business, we made the decision to sell in August and closed in December. But it was only because we had spent years
preparing for that.
Yeah. So we had been preparing for 5 to 7, probably more like 7 years. We had been preparing to sell, knowing that was coming. When we finally made the decision to sell, found a buyer, went through the process, it was relatively quick.
Wonderful. Well, thank you, Tony, so much for all that. I'm going to do a quick promotion before we go into the next piece. And this is really for the shops that are looking for assistance with this. The Institute's Gear Performance Groups are a combination of Arlo Training's history and the innovation from the Institute, culminating in the industry's most comprehensive and effective peer group programs. It helps achieve success with training based on real data and the supportive, driven, and passionate community of shops much like yourself. I've only touched the tip of the value that the groups get. So if you guys are interested, you can find more information on that program by clicking the link that we provided in chat. I'm pretty sure Lex will share that out for you. And we'd also like to provide you a kickstart towards your success. Again, start today by offering a complimentary business assessment that'll identify some critical opportunities for your business. And we'll provide that link in there as well. And that kind of moves on to the next piece. I'm very excited to introduce Michael Smith. Michael Smith, it's been a pleasure working with you, man. We just started working together recently, and I got to tell you, it's been great to see how you coming from the other end of this is bringing a lot of value to shops and giving them another alternative option for when it comes to transitioning their business.
Yeah, glad to be standing in the industry at this point. I came in from like 42 years. You mentioned experience. It makes me feel so old to be able to say that. That seems so far out, a long time ago. But coming into this industry, I met some folks that were in it, and I was semi-retired at the time. Had something I had gone off to do, Tony. So I had a plan, and I was executing it. And I got to tell you, retirement, guys, it's sometimes cracked up to be greater than it really turns out to be. I'm sitting on a beach with your dogs in a lawn chair. After a few weeks, gets a little old. I will tell you that from experience. So,
Who was it? I was
yeah.
talking with somebody about how they decided to live on a boat, and that's how they retired, was to just be on a boat for the rest of their lives.
That's a long
And I'm
time to
thinking,
be on a boat, I
man,
hope.
that's a long time to be on a boat.
And you better get used to waves and seasickness and all kinds of great stuff, right? So,
Yeah.
no,
We'll throw it over to you, Michael.
No, thank you. And I came, I'll put my slides up in a second. I came out of retirement, if you will, and into this world that we all are in now, because this industry is intriguing to me. And I had been in and out of 40 different industry verticals, consulting with the big consulting firms. I built 4 companies and sold them in different industries just to use my skills. And this brought me back out and into active work because of who you guys are and what this industry has been, what's challenging it now, and where it's going to go. And so it's a privilege to be here to support my new friends. In the last 5 years I've been doing this, I've met some of the greatest people I've met in my career. And I love your industry. I love you guys that are in it. I will say to people, this is probably one of the hardest industries, businesses I've ever seen, is automotive repair. And you guys in the independent world, you have a lot of moving parts. I'm telling you something you know better than I do. But I come to the table humbly because what the Institute does, what RLO has done, what the other guys on this call do, I couldn't operate a shop. I don't have the knowledge to do what all the folks that are on this webinar do. So I have huge respect for you and what this industry stands for. And I come just from outside, from a different angle. I grew up in the Fortune 100 and saw how super big organizations work, and in a lot of different industry applications of that. I also came to understand the financing community, the private equity world, and how money moves and who wants to buy what and why and all that. And that's what I get to bring to add value to what you all are up to at this point. You can't thank Tony for letting me sit next to you. I'm not on the beach. I'm sitting in my office, but I'm jealous of that dog that doesn't have to move. He's just sitting there looking out at the sea. That's what I wish I was doing, right? So,
He's on point.
Yeah, he's on point. That's right. He'll never move. So let me put up my slides and share them with you all, and we'll walk through this. And I would love to take questions at the end as well, as Tony did. So the question then becomes, what is next for your shop? Let me get this thing moving here. There we go. I want to start with some facts that kind of bring down into this industry. This is the stuff that I was aware of before we started here, and I think it adds some context to how to bring something else to the table, and then wrap all that Tony and Kent have been talking about. In the United States, there are 6 million privately held businesses. That's what I'm going to guess most of you are, 6 million or more. And of that 6 million, that represents about $10 trillion of wealth in this country. And again, this is all industry verticals, not just yours. The baby boomers are estimated to own 67% of these 6 million businesses. And of course, the boomers were those that are today aged 58 through 76 this year. I'm a boomer. I was born in 60. So I'm a little bit on the younger side of that group, but that's me. And so there's a bunch of us that are out there that are business owners that are basically getting ready to age out. These folks between 58, 76, give this another decade, we're going to be 68 to 86. Most of us are going to be gone in one form or another. And the question becomes, how do we do this, right? What do we do after a lifetime of building the legacies that we've been building? The sad part about what I want to share with you, and it's just facts, hopefully it doesn't apply to the folks that are on this call or this webinar, but the private investment community, when they look out to see in the middle of all these 6 million privately owned businesses, that only about 15 to 20% of them have retained sufficient value in the company to make the company worth purchasing. What that means is that companies with insufficient value to acquire, those who won't be bought by outside investors, is in the 80 to 85% of that range. That's an awful lot of businesses, folks. And what that means is that the folks that own the businesses use them like a cash machine. That was a good living. They took the money out. They ran their families with it. They had toys. They went on vacations, et cetera. But at the end of the day, there was nothing left in the business beside a handful of assets to purchase. And that's a sad fact that 80 to 85% of these businesses will not be purchasable outside of the normal track that's been followed in this industry. That amounts to 4.8 million businesses that are going to sell at bargain prices, or in the worst case, just close up for good. And I've been talking about this for the 5 years I've been in this industry, and I've sat with lots of owners, and they look at me a little bit like deer in the headlights when I start talking about this. And then I see them again a quarter later or 6 months later, and they walk up and they go, hey, you know what? You were right. I didn't really understand all this or pay attention to it. And since I heard this from you, I didn't believe it really. But as I've been driving around my own neighborhood, looking at all my competitors, Bob went out of business, Tony locked the front door, et cetera, et cetera. And they said, you know what? You're right. This thing is in transition. We're in a reformation stage in this industry. And now that we know that it's in flux, you know, what does it mean for us, right? That $8 trillion in wealth that is of the 10 trillion, right? If 80% of it isn't worth, the companies aren't worth buying, that means 8 trillion in wealth has largely been consumed by the prior owners and their groups. And that what it means is that when they sell at bargain prices or go out of business for good, these markets are up for grabs. That means their teams, that means their customers, that means the communities that they serve in are now going to have one less competitor in it. And it offers opportunities for all of us that are on this call and others in this industry to step in and to take, and it's not to take a negative advantage, it's to take an advantage of the situation and begin to do what? To pick up their teams, to pick up their markets, to start to serve their customers and help their communities. So there's an awful lot embedded in what's happening. When we look at your industry, the US government shows 275,000 businesses with your NAICS code. So that's an awful lot of players. Some of them are large, but the majority of them are one shop, two shop, three shop systems. The baby boomers in this industry, it's estimated that perhaps more than 2/3 of the businesses in your industry are boomer owned, and y'all have to just decide whether you agree with that or not. But I talk to lots of folks and they say, yeah, we think there's probably a greater percentage here. What that means is that if the statistics from the whole set of industries holds up, that 220,000 companies of the 275,000 will be insufficiently funded to acquire. And if the 140, that leaves 147,000 of them boomer owned, which is 55% of your industry is going to go out of business. So over half, guys, is not going to be here in the next 3 to 5 to 7 years. So that's an awful lot of opportunity for you. What we expected to happen when I first got into this industry 5 years ago was that all that I've talked about would tumble out and it would largely be taken care of by our family inside the industry, us. What happened was that because of COVID, the loans that the federal government made available to help delayed a lot of the boomers' exits. It was the 2008, 2009 hit that caused everybody to pause. So as the boomers were about to walk out the door, they took their checks and said, you know what, I'm going to come back in and sit down and see what happens. And so there's an awful lot of folks that are still hanging around the periphery that are thinking about getting out, that are kind of waiting to see what's going to happen. We think COVID was going to pass, and now we're standing in front of a recession potentially. And if it turns into the stagflation thing they're talking about, which means that it goes on for a while, we're already watching the stock market, the bond markets, asset values have plummeted. So we're a little bit back to the 2009, 8 and 9 window again, where their savings, most folks' savings have taken a hit. We got big checks on our hands that we're not sure when and how we're going to pay the government back. And so it kind of put everything on hold. A bright ray here is that outside investors have woken up to the great business that this is. This industry is a profitable business, and you know as well as I do, you know some peers who don't run very tight businesses and still stay in business. You can make good money, good net profits in this business if you run it well. And I know that's been our mission for many years. That's the Institute mission. doing is trying to help the folks that we know to run the business as tightly and well as possible, and have a value-based business to sell at the end, be in the 15 to 20% it's worth purchasing, if you will. And the investors have woken up. A lot of these private equity investors own restaurants, they own strip malls, they own all kinds of retail issues. A lot of that stuff collapsed in COVID and hasn't really come back. So in essence, your industry looks even better to them as we enter into the recession that we're standing in front of, at least in the high inflationary mode that we're in now. This just makes you all look even better. And so there's a bright future for you to expand into a multi-shop setting and to start thinking about what does it take to build a value-based business that's of interest to people outside of our industry. I just put the stats together. This is kind of a startling way to look at it, but on the old bell curve of our industry, if 55%, I made it just half here, of the industry goes away, and we can assume that a good chunk of those would be the current low performers. If you think about this, the bell curve shifts significantly to the right. And what that means is the business that was an average business in the current market, suddenly all of everybody below them disappears. And you are now, if you're the average business, you are the low player on the totem pole. You slide all the way down to the new bell curve of the industry. And the point being that the number of players in this industry is going to go down. They're going to get bigger. And you're going to need to be a whole heck of a lot more competitive and business oriented in the next 5 to 10 to 15 years than we've needed to be in the past. And to keep an eye on what it means to be out in the professional investment community and to be able to talk to folks about your value-based business. And that's the privilege that I get to come stand next to Kent and Tony and Cecil and all the folks involved here and my clients across the country, is to help bring these perspectives and add to what y'all have been doing and hopefully help you make a difference in the future. This is what we walked into, and the way it was explained to us by people who are pretty smart in the business, not the people that are here on this call, but others. They said, look, here's the 3-tiered traditional perspective of our industry that we run it. You buy a single shop, you might be working in it, you might be interested in the business, you step into it, you kind of don't know what you're doing in terms of running a shop. When you begin to run it, you run it like an income-based business. You're taking the money out like a cash machine. And at some point, if you get enough help, RLO, the Institute, you start to get pretty good at it. You stabilize the performance. It becomes an average value company. And then some crazy thing happens. You know somebody who wants to sell, you do a friend a favor or whatever, and you buy a second shop. And all of a sudden, the reality hits of what it means to be a multi-shop owner. And folks on this webinar who've been there, all of a sudden, if you're showing up at the single shop every day, and now you got 2, you can only show up at the places half the time. And unless you've got this dialed in at the beginning, then again, what normally happens is it becomes chaos again. And now you figure out the hard way how to run a multi-shop system. And what it requires is that you have to start handing things off to strong team members, because you have to make decisions when you're not there, because you can't be there all the time. And it sounds easier than it is, because when you have a mentality that you are the boss and it's there running around you, and it gets used to asking you questions about what to do in certain circumstances. As soon as you're not there, it's like, well, can we call you on the phone? How do we get these questions answered? You begin to start thinking about succession internally, not the end of the company, but inside your shop. It's like, what's my leadership team look like, and what do they need to know? And how do I begin to turn over different responsibilities? What am I good at that I hold on to as the owner of this at the beginning? And what can I hand off to people who are better at that inside our company than I am? And as you get 1 shop and it goes to 2, and then 2 goes to 3, some people get to 3 and stop, and it takes them 30 years to do that. Others get this crazy idea that they want to get to 3 to 4 to 5 to 10 to 15. And that's what I'm here, knowing how to bring that discussion to the table. There's a way to do that too. And that's kind of what we established 5 years ago when I got here. Was we built a network, and the primary objectives were to, down at the single shop level, let's make sure that we understand from a business perspective, not from a shop ownership and management perspective, but from a business perspective, how do we assure rock solid foundations so that we can take the step up and accumulate growth resources? In other words, the money that you're making as a high performance company, that you put it back into the business, and it goes from being an income-based business to being a value-based business. And when you're doing that, then you're in a position that you can start to expand one shop, two shop, three shop, and more. And so with that idea in mind, then we've developed our own version of a new three-tiered system. And this is just what we built our little organization on. And this is what we're standing now next to the Institute and RLO about, is our tier one is to say, look, you want to be a high performance company before you do much else. And what that means is, based on all the stuff that you learn from the folks that have brought you this knowledge in the past and who are on this call with me, what does it mean to dial in high performance? From our perspective, it would be a desire for a company to be in the top 10th percentile in the metrics of all of the company functions in running your business. And a lot of folks are good at sales, not so good at operations, vice versa, whatever. The idea being that in all 12 functions of the business, that you're operating in the top 10th percentile relative to your industry competitors. When you're running there and you're making good money, then you don't take the cash out in an income-based setting, you put it back into the business. So you don't buy the second toy or the third toy or the vacation home or go to Europe for a month. You basically keep working, and you do this consciously, and you take that money and you put it back into the business in the ways that build value from an investment perspective. And this is known what that looks like. The financial community knows what it's looking for. It knows what it will pay good money for. It knows what it will pay better money for. And so what you want to do is build your business knowing what they're looking for to pay you top dollar at some point when you get out, or even along the way. What if they join you and bring money as an investor to help you grow faster than you could grow organically yourself, and you can add even more shops, and then you both partner in the gain that comes from that. So tier one's high performance, tier two is reinvesting in value, and then that puts you in a position, if you want to learn the skills involved in mergers and acquisitions, to become your own consolidator, if you will. And it allows you to be formal about it. And there are books on this, and we built as a 20 type group. We have 25 companies in it at this point, spread across the US, and that we're basically learning how to be consolidators and grow fast. And so then the growth then becomes exponentially possible. In the industry, particularly, it's collapsing around you, and the reformation that it's going through is, do you want to play at that level? And again, I wouldn't say play there if you don't have a value-based perspective, because you're going to go borrow all the money you can, run it like a cash machine, and have nothing left at the end except debt. And that's not going to work for you either. So it is this three-step process, and it's a journey. When Tony was talking about, or Kent, I don't remember who said it, I think it was Tony, 5 years, that sounds about right. The finance community wants to see 3 full years of financials and where you are so far this year. And then they take it and look out to what your company's worth to them in the next 3 to 5 years. And then they're going to start to talk to you about what they'll pay you for it and what they want from you for it. That's a 3-year high performance window where you want to have those numbers on paper. Tony was saying, get your accounting together. You absolutely need to have that look bulletproof, because when an investor looks in, if they don't know that they can trust your numbers, you're not going to get a good price for your business. Investment works, and we all know this. It's risk management, right? They want their money to go make more money. And what they want it to do is to do it as safely as possible. If you don't keep a safe zone for them to give you money, they'll either give you less, or they'll charge you a lot to use it, or they're not going to give it to you at all, right? So that's kind of the platform of how you, so back to the dates, right? The 3 years of good high performance, value reinvestment, and then running an actively successful year now. What does it take to get ready to do that? There's a 1 to 3 year window of preparation there, starting where most companies are in this business, to stop and to start to understand this, to the owner to begin to get steeped in this information, to then begin to build a leadership team, to have then the SOPs and all that dialed in at a value basis rather than on a cash kind of a flow basis. And then you begin to move into the point where, when the results are coming in, now you have to accumulate them for a time frame, so that when investors look in, they know that you know how to do this sustainably over time. And when they see that sustainability, then they'll bring their best price to the table. And again, either as a co-investor, potentially as a buyer, if you're getting ready to get out of the business. So that's, I wanted to share with you the models. We'll back up from that. That's kind of where, Kent, I sort of plan to pause backing up what Tony had to say, bringing another perspective to it, and kick it back to you. I know you've been accumulating questions, and I'm here to answer any one that you guys have to the best of my ability. And trust me, I don't have all the answers. There's a lot of moving parts out there in and outside of this industry, but I'll do my best.
Yeah. I've got a few questions for you. First off, what are the key markers or key indicators that make up the valuation assessment for private equity companies? What are they looking for in particular?
They are extremely interested in Ebitda, earnings before income tax depreciation, and that is the key metric that the private equity world works in. In your industry, the average U.S. industry will trade at a 1 to 2 times Ebitda sale price, and that'll go down if it's not been 3 consistent years and stable. Your industry currently is running about 3 times Ebitda. So if you have a shop and you know what your Ebitda is, if you multiply that by 3, that is typically the price that an average company would get in your industry. If you're running better profitability than average, if you're running some kind of if you can tell a special story, if they can see you as more stable, remember what they pay money for is a controlled risk investment, right? If they give me $1 million and I'm risky, and they give you $1 million and you're not, they're going to give you better terms than me. They might even give you 2 million because I'm the guy they got to watch, and you're the one they know they can hand the money to, and you're going to make it work for them. So it really, Ebitda is the starting point in a lot of, especially in the small investment world, which is where I think most of the folks in this industry would be playing in the low end of the private equity world.
Awesome. We have a question from Craig. Thank you so much. He says, we are paying cash for all equipment purchases instead of loans. No interest payments, but it makes the P&L net look low. Is this okay, or should we just borrow and make monthly payments so that the net looks better?
Yep, you answered your own question, and thank you for asking it. It's working the net. You can overdo it and put everything on a credit card and get yourself in trouble by having a debt to equity ratio that is out of whack too, right? But to the extent that you can run a healthy business and you can use credit, use debt appropriately, meaning that you keep it under control and that you are able to show your profits running at a higher level, that's favorable. Now,
he said, oh.
No, I was just going to say, this really matters when you look at the end of your time together. So it doesn't mean if you're just starting this process, run out and buy a bunch of stuff on debt and then think you're in a better place. It really requires a plan, right? And part of this is, I'm gonna back up a minute, Kent. And I'm gonna add this if that's okay. Can I add a couple of new things here? I've long been talking about what Tony talked about. You begin with the end in mind, right? This issue of purpose. Why does your company exist? And you answer that question, and it informs a lot of what you're going to do. Again, I'm going to go philosophic on you guys, so bear with me for a minute. But I always start my clients with a question: why did you build your business in the first place? And what do you want from it? And what are you thinking then about it in terms of exit? And it's really starting to tap into the questions of what's the legacy that you want to leave behind you when you go. And it's all framed out of, and here's my philosophy, so just stay with me, the 4 basic existential questions mankind's been asking since we looked out of the caves. And it was, where do we come from? What are we doing here? How are we supposed to be while we're here? And what happens at the end when we're dead, right? This translates into business, into why did you build the business or buy it in the first place? What is your purpose while you're here? How are we supposed to do this is the character question. How do you put yourself together in a way that you can become trustworthy and reliable and dependable and desirable with your teams, with your customers, and in your communities? And then the exit question, the death of the company, if you will, in a positive way, is what's my exit strategy? Where am I going? When am I going? How do I want to get out? The old way of doing it was to sell, and I mean traditional, it can still be a functional exit strategy today, is to sell your business to somebody who works for you. And, the owner would first buy the business and rent the building from the old owner. Then the owner would buy the building from the old owner, when the old owner dies and their family sells it to them, then you're in the business for a while. Then when you get ready to go, you sell your business to your lead person and you keep the building, and that's your retirement cash flow. And then when you die, your family sells it, and that sort of rollover keeps happening. In the new world, the question is, what do you do with the real estate? What do you do with the business? Do you buy it? Do you sell do you have a REIT, a real estate investment trust, come in and buy the building? And then you rent from them and they give you cash to help you make another acquisition. There's a lot of side pieces to this that get very interesting. And again, it all comes back to strategy. But I say all that to say, you got to know what you're doing. What is the legacy you want to leave personally and professionally and for the company? And what's your exit look like? And when you start to frame that, then you can back up into the business strategy, answering some of the questions off of the slide that's still up, answering the questions that Tony was talking about. What do you do with SOPs? What is the business you run? Who are your customers? All that stuff falls out of the kind of the end game, big picture stuff. So I was to go a little lengthy on this, but I wanted to kind of get back into what do I do with my financials in the short run. I wouldn't start with answering that question. That's why I brought all this up. But I'll pause for a minute and start looking at the big picture and back into that. And then the details of whether that's a good idea or a bad idea, then manifest right in front of you. And it'll make perfect sense whether you put more on credit, less on credit, that kind of thing. I didn't mean to overcomplicate it, but working from the bottom up, it works a lot better if you can work from the top down, from the why first. So I'm gonna stop talking now.
No, I love that. I think that's a brilliant answer to that. I had a few other questions, maybe not in this vein, but
sure.
I got one more question for you.
Yeah. Okay.
What are the necessities to have established in order to go from one shop to two shops? And let's add on that and say, is there a difference when you get into 3+?
Oh yeah. Yes. Let me start with the first question. Yes, there's a huge difference at 3+, and I'll get to that in a second. My suggestion would be that you have the strongest team that you can, that you all are pulling the rope in the same direction with regard to purpose and character, that you guys are excited about working together. I meet lots of shops that have a single location and their company is full of strife. It's a traditional company. Sometimes guys get mad and throw tools at each other or whatever. It's kind of not real strong and stable. And my suggestion before shop 2 is understand what it takes to run an empowered high performance business and dial that stuff in at your one shop level. And then when you get that dialed in, you can focus on why you're thinking about expanding by an acquisition. You work on your current shop's working on organic growth and working on profitability and working on leadership development and working on customer development and finding ways to serve your community with meaning and all the stuff that makes you a strong platform. I always say it this way. It's like, if you want to build a skyscraper, you don't want to have a neighborhood full of cute Victorian houses. Every shop stands on its own. It's all different. There's no efficiency in it, because when the day comes to sell that, nobody's going to buy the neighborhood from you. They're going to buy it one house at a time. If you want to sell the unit in a multi-shop setting to a future buyer, you need to build a skyscraper, and you can't build a skyscraper on top of a rickety single first floor. So the best way to answer that question is get that rickety wooden building put some steel beams in it and pour some concrete, make your foundation stronger and wider, and get that sucker ready to put the second floor on top of it. And the second floor should look like the first floor for efficiency purposes, right? Just to stay with our metaphor. So if you're going to keep adding floors to 3 to 4 to 5, you got to keep the baseline getting stronger and stronger. And each floor you add, the better off, the better you can buy a store that already looks like who you are, then the transitions are easier. And you buy something that already has value built into it. And then you don't have to fix it, because fixing it just takes time, and that makes the investors nervous, right? So again, I'll pause. There's lots of detail to this, but think in terms of a neighborhood full of cute Victorian houses. Don't do that. If you want a value-based organization, build a skyscraper. So start with that first store foundation and make it as strong as you can.
I love it. That's awesome. That's all the time we have for questions. If you want to, I thought you had a slide here.
I just have one more to say, and then Ken knows this is coming. No surprise, I can't make it move here. Let me try to do this. If you need to get a hold of me, I will, tell Kent about all the folks that I connect with. Whatever, we're going to keep connected the way we are. My phone number's there. It's a mobile phone. Just give me a ring. I'll call you back as soon as I can, and my email's there as well. So any follow-up questions you have, as I say, Kent and the Institute, RLO, and I have begun to walk together here recently, and it's a marriage made in heaven from what I can tell. So, reach out to me, you can get me through Kent anytime you want to, through your RLO folks as well. So just reach out if I can help you. Okay. And we're going to keep this circle tight. So.
Awesome. I love it. I want to add something before we end out. Everything we cover today is part of something bigger. It's, the opportunity to grow your legacy and provide not only a living, but a life for yourself, your employees, your collective families, and, build something grand for your community. In order to achieve much of this, like a lot of what we've mentioned today, you can't always be the one at the counter. You have to leave that responsibility to someone else, and not just anyone else, right? Because your sights need to be set for something further ahead, right? And we see this problem with a lot of shops. We actually work with service advisors to build up their skills, to gain the confidence necessary to take care of your customers while being the face of your company and managing their station, kind of freeing you up to take advantage of the opportunities that we've discussed today, those high-level executive tasks and ideologies and everything that we cover. I mean, there was so much we covered today, and it does start with getting you freed up so that you can take advantage of these opportunities. So if you might be interested in seeing more about our advisor performance groups, you can schedule a meeting with one of our consultants or check out the link that we dropped in the chat. With that, I'd love to say, wow. I knew this was going to be a good topic, but I was learning, new stuff every time we get into it. What an incredible amount of value that we got out of this short time today. I want to thank Tony and Michael for being here today. Thank you guys so much for your time. I think, as young as I am, to be sitting in the room with guys like you, it's absolutely humbling. If you'd like to know more about what Michael does, obviously he just shared some of his stuff, but you can visit herzbergsmith.com. We'll share that as well. And I think you put your email in there. And if you're curious about the peer group programs that the Institute runs, and you want to follow up with Tony, you can find more information at wearetheinstitute.com/programs, or you can email myself or Tony at kent@wearetheinstitute.com or tony@wearetheinstitute.com. And if you'd like to join some of the best shops in the industry, you can sign up for our private network community called the Gearheads Network. Signing up is free. It only takes a minute, and we'll post a link for that as well. And again, for those who are interested in further discussion on these topics, I'm going to open up a Zoom meeting for all of you to jump into right now for the next 20, 30 minutes, and we can have kind of a nice group discussion face-to-face. We'll share a link for all of these items in the chat. Thank you again for coming. What incredible stuff we covered tonight. Make sure to keep an eye out for more of these webinars coming up, covering a variety of critical topics. Again, check wearetheinstitute.com, follow us on Facebook or YouTube, or join the Gearheads Network, our private community, to keep updated when our next webinar is. Thank you, gentlemen, so much. We're going to end it off with that, and looking forward to the future.
Thanks for the privilege. It was great to be here. Good luck, everybody.
Pleasure was mine. Thank you very much.